On August 13, 2018, something happened to the Watts family. That same day on August 13, 2018, Shanann and her daughters, Bella and Celeste, were reported to the authorities by Shanann's friend, Nicole Atkinson. Nicole mentions that after dropping her off from a business trip at 2 a.m. from the airport, she has not heard from her and is worried about her well-being and whereabouts. Shortly after the call to authorities, Officer Scott arrives at the scene but could not locate the owner of the property. However, eventually, Chris Watts, Shanann's husband, arrives at home and allows everyone to enter the residence. This is where Officer Scott and everyone there investigated the disappearance of Shanann and her daughters. Inside the Watts house, Officer Scott performed his investigation by asking Mr. Watts about anything he may know about what happened. However, Mr. Watts seemed unaware of what happened or where Shanann and her daughters may have gone. What is known, however, is that the front door camera recorded Shanann's last moments and whereabouts. Camera footage from a neighbor also recorded Mr. Watts' truck being loaded with something that is unknown. The neighbor also states that Mr. Watt was acting strange, but Officer Scott said that it is probably due to their current situation. The next day, news reporters came hoping to question Mr. Watts to find any details that would help with the investigation. At this point, Mr. Watts mentions to the reporters that he and his wife had an argument prior to their disappearance. Thus, Mr. Watts was brought in for questioning, in which he agreed to a polygraph test. That next day, Mr. Watts came to the police station to perform that test. Mr. Watts was asked questions that asked if he knew anything about what happened to his wife and his daughters or their whereabouts. Mr. Watts had failed that polygraph test and was kept for further questioning. Mr. Watts asked to speak with his father, in which he admitted to killing his wife Shanann only after she had killed their daughters by smothering them. This allowed the investigators to question where their bodies were, in which Mr. Watts replied with the oil well site where he worked that morning of the incident, Survey 319. Mr. Watts was given a picture of the site and asked to locate the bodies. Mr. Watt marked the spot where he buried Shanann and said Bella and Celeste were in the oil containers right behind it. The authorities were able to safely retrieve the bodies in a couple of days. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts admitted to 9 charges after he entered a plea of guilty. These counts, including the murder in the first degree for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, a count of unlawful termination of pregnancy in the first degree, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body since he disposed the bodies. Mr. Watts pleaded guilty on November 19, 2018, in the Weld County Courthouse in Colorado, and was sentenced to 3 life sentences in Dodge Correctional Institution. The Netflix documentary American Murder: The Family Next Door provides an in-depth look at Chris Watts' case, highlighting the role of social media, the tragic impact on the victim's family. It also highlights the investigative process and raises awareness about domestic violence and manipulation through lies. Investigating crimes like the ones Chris Watts committed is critical to safeguard the public from deadly harm. And it would not be safe to allow these murderers or criminals to be on the loose.